All right, on today's show, we're talking Memphis Grizzlies. It's Tony Ransom, Sports Talk, Tennessee. All right. Welcome to It's Tony Ransom, Sports Talk, Tennessee, the number one spot to stay up to date on all your favorite Tennessee sports, guaranteeing to bring you all the latest breaking news, updates, and definitely last but not least, my opinion. I'm your host, Tony Ransom, and this is Sports Talk, Tennessee. Now, on today's show, we are talking Memphis Grizzlies. One of the things we're going to talk about, first off, we're going to dive into the state of the Grizzlies mid-season. We just got past the trade deadline and the All-Star break. We're also going to touch on Ja Morant. There have been some trade rumors out there. We're going to put an end to that. Let's see exactly what the facts are. I'm going to jump into, I want to talk a little bit about the lack of love that I feel that Ja Morant gets around the NBA and from the mass media. So we're going to talk about that somewhat. And last but not least, we're going to talk about the Grizzlies playoffs / championship outlook, where I think we are mid-season, and I think how far I think we're going to be able to go, where we're poised to go when the playoffs starts. All right, now, before we get started, I do want to say a special thank you to all my current subscribers. Thank you for your support. If you have not done so, make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel. Remember, we're going to keep you up to date on all your favorite Tennessee sports. All right, the first thing we're going to talk about is the state of the Grizzlies. Now, what I want to do first is I want to go over some of the stats that we have where the Grizzlies stand like mid-season. So let's go through a little of this. Currently, the Grizzlies sit second in the West behind OKC at 37-20. So we're second in the West completely. We're tied with the Knicks actually in the whole NBA for fourth overall. One of the good stats I think that we should pay attention to is the Grizzlies are actually 21-6 at home. Now, I bring that up because we all know how much home field advantage means in the playoffs. And looking at that record where you see some teams that are just kind of average at home, that to me, in my opinion, it kind of doesn't give them that full-fledged home court advantage. But when you got a team like the Grizzlies that sit at 21-6 at home, you know, coming into the grindhouse, you're gonna have to be ready to play, and we're gonna be favored in the majority of those games. Now, also the Grizzlies sit seventh in the NBA. Seventh in the West in defensive ranking. Actually, fifth we're seventh in defensive ranking all over the whole NBA. Fifth in the West. We're number 2 in offensive ranking in the NBA, which is number 1 in the West. So then let me say that again. We're number 2 in offensive ranking over the whole NBA. Number 1 in the West. So what that means is that we score more points than any other team in our respective conferences or the NBA. Also, we're number 7 in three-point ranking, 4th in the West. So number 7 in the NBA, we're 4th in the West. We're number 2 in offensive rebounds in the NBA, which is also 2nd in the West. And we're number 2 in points in the paint in the NBA, also 2nd in the West. And I think those points in the paint with Zach Edey, with Clark, you know, with Jared Jackson Jr. being able to slot down to the 5 spot when needed. I mean, points in the paint, rebounds, in my opinion, and we all know from the history of the NBA, that's what's going to get you playoff wins and championships. And I bring up all of those rankings for this. The Grizzlies are ranked in the within the top 10 in almost every category in the NBA. Now, what does that mean? What that means is that if you look back in history, the teams that have won the championship in recent years all rank normally within the top 5. Now, like I said, we are number 10. We're in the top 10 of all those rankings. But look at the lowest ranking that we have is number 7. And we've got the rest of the season to actually kind of get that up. And I think that's a lot of what you're going to see from the Grizzlies this second half of the season. And I also want to bring up this. We've done all of this majority without Ja Morant. We know he's been hampered by a shoulder injury. So I think it's a really, really good attribute to our team that it shows how deep we are. It shows the continuity we have. It shows that they buy into what the coaches do. And we're doing all of that without Ja Morant 100% of the time. I think that's really going to come into play with the playoffs, because if you're doing all of this without the star player, oh man, you wait till the playoffs get here. Y'all gonna have to come see us at the Ground House for real. So I mean, I'm eager, I'm enthusiastic about what the Grizzlies are doing, and especially how we play in the absence of our superstar. So, that's kind of like my take on where we are midseason. I think a lot of times the NBA doesn't give us the credit, or doesn't give us the props or our flowers based on where we are just in like the rankings. I mean, like I just went through all of those rankings. I mean, the Grizzlies should be being talked about like OKC, the New York Knicks, the Boston Celtics. However, I think because we're a small market team, and some of the woes that we had with Ja Morant, our superstar player, I think that gives us not as much media play, but it's all right. Don't worry, you got to come play us. Now, last but not least, I do want to talk about this with the Grizzlies. We, with the way that our bench is set up, we kind of started the season off with Jackson not being our second year player, not being able to play, and I think with the second half of the season, what you're going to see the Grizzlies do a lot of is kind of get a lot of minutes for those players that are come off our bench, because the Grizzlies bench is really deep. I mean, it's deep. We can run a rotation of 9-10 players easily. And we've got all really, really high caliber players. Once again, players that buy into the system. And when we go out on the court, they know what they're doing. Another thing that I really like about watching the Grizzlies games is that you'll notice that, like, say the first half, we may be a little bit out of sorts. And this is a really big tribute to Coach Jenkins. You can tell when we come out for the second half, he has adjusted, and the Grizzlies are ready to play based on what we've seen in the first half. And to me, that's a sign of a real, true championship team. So kudos to the Grizzlies, man. I'm really liking where we are mid-season, All-Star break. I can't wait to see the rest of the season, and we'll see where we end up when the playoffs get ready to start. All right? Now, before we get back to go to our next subject, I do want to say thank you once again, everybody that's subscribed to the channel. Make sure that you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share the link. When we come back, we are going to talk about Ja Morant. All right, a portion of our show today is brought to you by Bluff City Lawn and Pressure Wash. I know if you are in the Memphis area, you know it's about to start getting warm. Got a time to keep your yards up. Check these guys out. Bluff City Lawn and Pressure Wash. They specialize in lawn mowing, edging, leaf removal, gutter cleaning, brush and hedge trimming, yard cleanup, and pressure wash. Definitely check them out. Great quality service, affordable price. They also give out free quotes. So if you want to get a free quote, you can email them at quote@bluffcitylawns.com. Once again, that's quote@bluffcitylawns.com, or you can call them directly at 901-488-1796. All right, welcome back to the show. Today we're talking Memphis Grizzlies, and now we're about to talk about my favorite player in all of the NBA, maybe my favorite player in professional sports, period. Ja Morant. Now, if you have not heard, there was a rumor that came out that stated that the Grizzlies were possibly looking to trade Ja. Now, I'm gonna say this. I think this is where I think a little of this came from. I think we were all a lot kind of surprised about the whole Luka trade and with LA, and it kind of sent out a sentiment amongst the NBA that nobody was off limits. Now, I don't totally agree with that because I think the Luka and AD trade, I actually think it was, I mean, a good trade. I've got my apprehensions about both of those players. However, I don't think it was that big of a shock of, it's from a front office standpoint. And I think it did kind of sent, like I said, it kind of sent ripples through the NBA that, oh my goodness, nobody is off limits. I beg to differ though. Not talking about down here in Memphis, Tennessee. So the rumor came out that one of the execs, and like I said, strictly a rumor, one of the execs, this was reported by, is Howard Beck. Howard Beck, he's got I guess a podcast, and he put out a tweet, and I'll quote what he said was, "Keep an eye as a potential trade candidate this summer if the Grizzlies don't do well in the playoffs," speaking about Ja Morant. And according to him, he sourced this with, I guess, some other executives around the NBA. First of all, I'm really leery about hearing information from someone that's necessarily outside of that loop. I mean, if you're saying that other executives said this, what did our ownership or GM say? What was our stance on that? Because if it didn't come from us, it really actually holds almost no weight. And I think, in my opinion, that's exactly what it did hold. Absolutely no weight. Now, what I do like is how our general manager, he completely went on and to debunk this whole rumor of us possibly trading Ja Morant. Like, come on. I mean, Ja Morant is must-see TV. There is no team in the NBA that wouldn't consider trading for Ja Morant. He's a superstar. In my opinion, definitely one of the upcoming faces of the league. Now, I know he's had those weak legal woes. I mean, we all make mistakes. However, I don't think that should hinder him from being like the face of the NBA. And I'll give you a little bit background from my personal experience. I fly a lot all over, and a lot of times you're somewhere, especially in the airport or somewhere, and someone asks you, hey, where are you from? And I say Memphis. One of the first things they talk about is the Memphis Grizzlies and Ja Morant. So not only do we support him in the city, you got people from all over the countries and even in other countries that look at Ja Morant as like the superstar, which he is. I mean, Ja Morant is must-see TV. So for the notion that we would actually consider trading him, when I first heard that, I literally was like, there's no way. But let's see I'm going to quote what the general manager of the Grizzlies. This is what he had to say. Emphatically now, we are not trading Ja Morant. And he states, "I'm not going to give this nonsense further oxygen." Now, this is where I think a lot of this came from. His next statement. So listen to this. He says, "I can't blame other executives for fantasizing about such a trade, but it is just that, fantasy." Now, in my opinion, I think that's kind of where the whole trade rumors came from. Yes, like I stated, there's not one NBA team, I don't think, that wouldn't consider trading for Ja Morant. I mean, maybe some like Boston or some teams like that. However, any other team, I can assure you they would consider trading for Ja Morant. Why? Because he's a superstar. Ja Morant is the motor, the heart of our team. Now, are we deep? Yes. But Ja Morant, he is the motor of the team. You don't trade your star player, especially in the market that we are. Like in Memphis, we have to admit, it's a small market. We got extremely fortunate being able to get him in the draft. So that's definitely not a player that you trade. Now, I like further what Kleiman has to say, and this is the part that really kind of got me fired up. He says that, and I'll go back. He says, listen, like he said, I can't blame other executives for fantasizing about such a trade, but it is just that, fantasy. Now, check this out. Grizzly fans, Ja Morant, city of Memphis. Kleiman says, continue to underestimate Ja, the team, and the city. So we're going to let our performance speak for itself on the floor. Period. Basically, what he's saying is we're not trading Ja. Yeah, is it a fantasy that other NBA teams executives would love to have a player like Ja? Sure, but they don't. He's a Memphis Grizzly. He likes being in Memphis, and in my opinion, I think that's where Ja's going to be for the duration of his career. So for everyone that kind of took this rumor and ran with it, listen to what our general manager says. They're not trading Ja Morant. Okay. Like I said, Ja Morant is the motor of our team. And I'll say this. I really like kind of how what the Grizzlies did this season. Now, is Ja 100%? I don't think so. No, I don't think Ja's 100% thus far. And you guys keep in mind this. Ja was basically out all of last season. We had the suspension at the beginning of the year. Then he was injured. He had to have surgery. Well, think about this. Ja's really just now coming back, okay? And it may take a minute for him to get in, playing form or playing, not that necessarily the mode, but the playing form. And I really like what we as the Grizzlies, what this coaching staff, what they've done with managing his minutes. Yeah, you could have Ja coming out every night, putting on a show, definitely, but it's the regular season. And, we're doing, like I said, we're ranked number 2 in the Western Conference as of right now, okay? You want a fresh Ja for the playoffs. You know what I mean? Ja is a dynamic player. He's amazing. Some of the things that he does with contorting his body in the paint, it can take a wear and tear on your body. So I really like how the Grizzlies, how we've decided that, we're going to, with him not being at 100%, which like I said, that's just, that's my insight. I don't have any inside track on that. Just from seeing him though, I think Ja is not 100% ready, or he's not at 100% right now. So to be able to manage his minutes throughout the regular season, have a team as deep as we have to be able to carry us and still have us in the number 2 spot in the Western Conference, I think that is going to play over so well when it comes playoff time. So once again, my hat off for everyone that, that is down in the Grizzlies or talking about Ja's not playing. He doesn't go, he's not durable. Listen. Wait till the playoffs. Minute management happens all over the NBA. Don't get upset because we're doing it. The proof will be in the pudding. I can assure you, Grizzlies playoff time will be ready. So, like I said, everybody that's doubting Ja, everybody that doubts our team, and sit back. You'll see. All right? That's all I got there on Ja. Like I said, man, listen, you guys, we need to show a lot more love to Ja, show a lot more love to the Memphis Grizzlies. If not, we'll take it. Don't worry. All right? All right, welcome back to It's Tony Ransom Sports Talk Tennessee. Now we have reached the last segment of our today's show, talking about the Memphis Grizzlies. Now I want to jump into where I think the Grizzlies are going into the playoffs and our championship outlook. All right. Now, first off, to kind of go back over some stats we talked about in the other segment, Grizzlies currently sit second in the West in offense, 7th in defense, 2nd in the West overall. Okay. Now, leading up into the playoffs, I think, like I said, we've we've been doing really well, in my opinion, on managing minutes. Ja Morant actually getting like some of the other bench players a lot of minutes. Which, if you look back, this is kind of how we got here, based on last season. With Ja being out, we had a lot of injured players. It gave a lot of our bench and some of our rookies chance to get experience that on other teams you wouldn't have. Now, another benefit is that we end up getting a really good draft pick and got Zach Edey. And listen, I am a big fan of Zach Edey. And let me admit, I was not at first. However, seeing what the Grizzlies, how they're going to use him, you're going to see a lot of Zach Edey in the playoffs. And I think of some of what the Grizzlies do, like I think other teams do, is you don't want to kind of show your whole hand. So if you go at full-fledged all season long, 82 games, you're kind of giving other teams an opportunity to devise a plan against you. So I think with the way that the Grizzlies have managed minutes and the way we incorporate our bench, I still don't think the Grizzlies have shown you everything that we have to show offensively. Okay. And I think that's when you're going to see it, is when the playoff starts, because, the regular season is a regular season, but however, we all know the playoffs is where it's at. All right. And I think the Grizzlies, man, we're going to be ready when it comes playoff time. So I kind of went through a scenario of where, let's just say this is if the NBA playoffs start today. Grizzlies currently sit at the number 2 seed. All right. And if the playoffs started today, we've got OKC at number 1, number 2 is the Grizzlies, number 3, the Nuggets, number 4, the Lakers. Okay. So if the playoffs started right now, in the first round, and I'm not going to go into like the play-in, I'm just going to go in the first top 8, okay, in the Western Conference. So you would have, if the playoffs started today, you would have OKC playing Dallas. You would have the Grizzlies playing the Mavericks, the Nuggets playing the Clippers, the Lakers playing the Rockets. Now, out of those 8 teams, I would actually say that the OKC would probably beat Dallas. I mean, I think with the whole Anthony Davis, I think they'll give them a good run at it, I think, but ultimately OKC comes out on top in that series. Then you got the Grizzlies versus the Mavericks. And to me, and I don't just say this because I'm a Grizzly fan, whoever we face in the first round, I think it's got it coming. The Grizzlies are so hungry based on what happened last year and kind of what the lack of love, lack of flowers we've gotten this season from the NBA and mass media. I think that first round, we're going to come out blazing, ready to go. So I take the Grizzlies over the Mavericks in that series. Then you've got the Nuggets that would play the Clippers. I would take the Nuggets in that series over the Clippers. I think it'll be a competitive series, but I think ultimately the Nuggets come out on top. Then you got the Lakers and the Rockets. And understand, like I said, this is based on where it's sitting right now. In my honest opinion, do I think the Lakers are going to make it? Would they be in that 4th spot? No, I don't. I think the Lakers may or may not even make the playoffs. But if we go with what we have right now on paper right now, you've got the Lakers playing the Rockets. So in that series, though, I take the Rockets. And so in the to get to the Western Conference Finals, you'd have OKC versus the Rockets. Then you have the Grizzlies versus the Nuggets. OKC and the Rockets, I think that would be a really good series. Once again, pretty competitive. However, I think that the Rockets are maybe a year away from being able to kind of get up there with where I rank like OKC and us, the Grizzlies. So I'm going to take OKC against the Rockets, all right? Then you would have the Grizzlies versus the Nuggets. I'm definitely taking the Grizzlies over the Nuggets. And I think that's where Zach Edey, Brandon Clark, Jared Jackson Jr. being able to slide to that 5th spot, I think that's where you're going to see a really, really good series and how the Grizzlies really offensively on the boards and in the paint, how we really set ourselves up to go to the Western Conference Finals. So I'm taking, obviously, the Grizzlies over the Nuggets. So we're looking at the Western Conference Finals. of OKC and our Memphis Grizzlies. Now, I do know we've had our woes against OKC. All right. And I'm just gonna tell you my opinion. I think we are. All right. I don't think that the Grizzlies have shown, like I said, our full hand. You know what I mean? It's almost like playing like a spade game. Like you don't show your whole hand to maybe that you get halfway through the hand, so that halfway through the game, so that you've got a surprise. Your opponent can't strategize against you. And I think we're going to see some of that really good offensive technique come into play with OKC. And I also think that OKC may, in a Western Conference Finals with the Grizzlies, they may kind of feel like, hey, we got this. And let me tell you, that's the wrong thing to do when it comes to dealing with the Memphis Grizzlies. We're a grindhouse, a gritty team, gritty city, and for that reason, I'm picking the Grizzlies, not just because I'm a fan, which totally am. I'm picking the Grizzlies to go to the Western Conference Finals. Now, I know I talked about it, so we're going to talk about our playoff outlook, and then our championship outlook. Now, on the East, I'm not going to break down what I think, who I think will come out the East. I'm just going to pick one team that I think that if I had to go with the odds, I think it would be Cleveland. Now, if I had to choose either Cleveland or Boston, I kind of would rather see Cleveland, okay? And it's not necessarily a team thing. This is why I would pick Cleveland. I don't know if you guys remember, maybe a season or two ago, there was some chippiness going on between the Grizzlies and there's the Cleveland star player. Now, I think if we see Cleveland in the NBA Finals, that is a big motivation for the Grizzlies. And if you follow our team, if you know us, we're that type of team. Like, we need very little to motivate us and to go into complete dog mode and just tear it up. So I think if we end up facing Cleveland in the finals, I'm gonna tell you something. I think the Grizzlies become NBA champions in 6 games. Honestly, if it's Cleveland. Now, if it's Boston, I think it does go 7, and I still like our chances in that. So, with all that being said, and this may come off a little bit off, I'm picking the Memphis Grizzlies to win the NBA championship next year. And to kind of follow up like what I'm saying, Jerry Jackson Jr. was asked, what would be a measure of success for the Grizzlies? Okay. See what he said. NBA championship. What does that tell you? That tells you the Grizzlies are not going into this season saying, okay, let's make the playoffs. Let's make the Western Conference Finals. They're going into the season saying, we're going to win a championship. And to me, if you are a team with those kind of aspirations, first off, you got to believe it. And clearly the Grizzlies do as well as I do. So, sit back, watch the rest of the season. I can't wait for the playoffs. We're gonna really see where the Grizzlies stand, and hopefully it'll be a party in Memphis. We'll be holding up that NBA championship trophy.